Okay, today we are going to do birch trees, and we're going to do the birch trees that way, but to get started, it helps to tape the watercolor paper down on something plastic is nice. And in order to keep the edges nice and clean, we take masking tape and just mask off the edges. And I took all my narrow masking tape to school, so I had to cut wide masking tape, but we tape that down, and that's the last thing to come off after we're done. But use the nice smooth edge if we've cut it in half. Tape our edges off, and then we're going to use strips of masking tape to represent tree trunks. So I'm going to turn the page around, and I'm going to imagine I've got a clump of birches, and one is going off like that, and then I've got some narrower ones. In front and behind. Don't want to press too hard with the tape because this tape has to come off afterwards, but this way we keep the paper nice and white for our next step. Now maybe we've got a tree coming off there, going off into the side. Might have a stump or branch. Could be some more just going off that way. Students can do whatever they like. If they want to add some little branches, they can add branches in. The first step, of course, would be to look at the photographs that were in the slideshow that I put in the lesson earlier to analyze what the trees look like. Don't want too much because we want to leave some room for the sky and background, which we're going to do with a watercolor wash. So what we need for that is paint and a wide brush to do the wash in the background. And this has to be done the day well, it has to be done first, and then the paint has to dry a little bit before you can do the other part. So I'm going to imagine it's a bit nighttime-y. So I'm going to put some blue across the back, and I want it quite dark at the top, and then grading to lighter as I go down. So I'm going to go from blue to purpley, and maybe even some pink. Pink and yellow. And then we're getting into our browns along the ground where the leaves have sat and started to get dark. There's a little black. To make that bottom part. All right. And that's our wash. We have to let it dry. And this time I'm going to go for a paler blue sky. More of a daytime look. Nice and pale. And perhaps there's a little bit more of the orangey look along the bottom. Maybe even some green in the background. Clean the brush a little. Don't like that. Pull it off a little. And change it to a green. So there's a green hill off in the background. And maybe we need to just... No, brown, don't like. You can dab off. You can dab off the... Got to be careful not to put too much paint on, not too much water. Even though it's watercolor paint, it may get a bit too wet and ruin your picture. But what you want is kind of grade have a gradation of color from top to bottom. And if you think you've got too much water on, you can dab your brush and take some of that off. All right, and that is going to sit and dry while we work on the next one. The first one we started. The tape that we put down for the trees, and we'll see that we have a nice white space for to paint our trees so that they have a nice coloring to them. And if it peels a little paper, it doesn't really matter, then it'll add bark-like texture to the picture. But now we need a smaller brush and we need a scraper. So I left my scraper, so I'll use this. So in this one, we're going to take, you should experiment first with a bunch of different, on ordinary paper. You can experiment with this, but let's imagine the light is coming from the other side, and this side is kind of our back. So I need to get enough paint. I'm going to use brown on one side and purple on the other. Let's give that a try. But I got to get enough water to make it. I need a nice thick layer of paint along the edge. And go right over top of the paint and tape, I mean. And then you take this and press hard, hard, and then scrape and lighten. This is the best scraper tool. A popsicle stick works way better. But we'll try it again. And if I press hard and then release pressure as I go. I think I'm going to have to get a better scraper.